Hey everybody, welcome to episode 19 of Awakening the Ordinary. My name is Daniel Clower and we really need to talk. In this week's episode, as before, you can kind of see down below by looking at the timestamps exactly what we're going to be talking about and when. But I do want to preface this by giving, I guess, kind of a trigger warning or a content warning. See, the first thing I'm going to be talking about is some of the history behind the Epstein case. I realized as I was doing some research on everything that was going on that even though I am chronically online and exceptionally plugged in my opinion, there was still a ton of stuff that I was completely unaware of about the history of Jeffrey Epstein himself, Donald Trump and Epstein's relationship. And so to kind of give some context behind everything that's going on, I wanted to talk about the history regarding Epstein, Trump, and how we got to where we are now. When I talk about that, I am going to be bringing up some of the stuff that Epstein did. And unfortunately, that means I'm going to be talking about some sensitive topics. Now, I am going to wear kid gloves. I won't be going into graphic detail or description of any specific acts. But I do just want to let you know we're going to be talking about some uncomfortable things. Afterwards, as I promised, we are going to be diving into some of the immigration stuff that's been going on. I really don't want that to leave your mind completely. I know everything that's going on right now is absolutely crazy. It's hard to keep track of it all, but that's kind of why I'm here. We're going to get through this Epstein stuff. We're going to talk about some of the immigration stuff and other stuff that's going on. And then at the very end, as usual, we're going to be talking about some strange reactions to my talk about healthcare for all, capitalism, and that kind of thing. Without further ado, let's dive into the history behind Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, and really how we got to where we are now. First of all, I should give you a little bit of background on Jeff. Jeffrey Epstein was a math teacher. He somehow, and it's a little fuzzy on exactly how, wound up getting a job at a somewhat prestigious high school teaching math in the Upper East Side in New York. Now, he didn't have a college degree. He was purportedly very good at math. He was kind of a whiz, but he had no formal education in it. And when he worked at this high school, there were reports that he leered at the girls, that he kind of stumbled into parties where students were drinking together, that he every once in a while made inappropriate comments. And eventually he ended up getting fired from this job working at a high school teaching children math for performance issues. From there, he was hired on to work as a day trader in New York. Some of the parents of some of the children that he taught took a liking to him. He was incredibly charismatic. He knew how to talk the talk and how to convince people that he was an expert, that he was an absolute wizard. And so they brought him in to be their options trader. Now, I'm not going to dive into what exactly that is. We don't need to talk about the history of the stock market or anything like that, but options trading was a new thing at the time. And it was sort of a burgeoning research field almost. Well, as I said before, Epstein was pretty good at math, and he evidently was a natural. He was a highly successful options trader. He ended up kind of passing through a few different corporations and institutions. He got fired once for a Regulation D offense, which is basically trading in a way that you shouldn't trade. And from there ended up essentially forming his own companies, his own consultation firms, and that is where he ended up amassing his wealth. That's where he started meeting new people, making friends, rubbing elbows with the rich and powerful across the world, and that is, presumably, where he met his friend, Donald Trump. One of the places that we have the most information about Jeffrey Epstein and his relationship with Donald Trump is actually from Epstein himself. An interviewer named Michael Wolff gathered about 100 hours of interview footage with him prior to his most recent arrest. Now, I say his most recent arrest because this most recent stint in prison that wound up in his death was not his first run-in with the law. let's work backwards. In 2005, Jeffrey Epstein ran into some legal trouble because a parent of a 14-year-old reported him to the police. They said that he was soliciting their daughter for pictures and other sexual activity. He ended up getting arrested, was going to face trial, but came to a plea deal agreement. The agreement involved him pleading guilty to soliciting a minor for prostitution and involved him essentially turning in the names of a lot of other people that he was working with. Now, this was a very controversial deal at the time because it meant that he only served 13 months in prison. And even in that 13 months, he was on work release for large portions of that. The implied idea being that some of the people that he turned in were rich, famous, and powerful people, and they didn't want to get on their bad side. Now we rewind a little further. Back in 2004, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein had their last recorded interaction. They got into a fight in a bidding war over a mansion in Florida. The mansion was supposed to go up for bidding for about $40 million. Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump both wanted it. Donald Trump ended up winning the bidding war for $41 million and ended up selling that mansion about 5 years later to a Russian oligarch, but that's beside the point. That was the wedge that came between them and broke up a friendship of about 15 years. Now, we have in Jeffrey Epstein's own words here what their relationship was like. He said that he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years. He said that, in fact, Donald Trump and Melania first engaged in intercourse for the very first time on the Lolita Express, Jeffrey Epstein's 757 Boeing plane. We know for sure that Donald Trump has ridden on that plane at least 7 times, although he does claim that he never went to Jeffrey Epstein's island. More on that later. Jeffrey Epstein described Trump as charming, always fun, and constantly trying to sleep with his friends' wives. He also claimed that, at heart, Trump was a friendless man, basically incapable of kindness, and that he underwent scalp reduction surgery because he was going bald. So obviously, Epstein and Trump did not have a great relationship, right? Well, I don't know about that. Let's rewind a little more. In 2002, in an on-the-record interview with New York Magazine, Donald Trump described Jeffrey Epstein as this: "He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life." Donald Trump claimed that he was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein for about 15 years. Now, during these 15 years, Donald Trump was well known as a philanderer. He was well known for hosting beauty pageants with young women, purposefully walking into young women's dressing rooms as they were getting disrobed. He said that he thought he could just do that because he was the owner, and that's just what owners did. Now, another link between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump is Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago was evidently hunting grounds for Ghislaine Maxwell. Virginia Giuffre is one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. She very recently passed. She ended her own life in, frankly, fairly suspicious circumstances. But years back, she gave some testimony about how Ghislaine Maxwell found her. She was 17 years old when she got a job at Mar-a-Lago as a towel girl. Ghislaine thought that she was attractive and fit exactly Jeffrey Epstein's type. And so she got her to meet with Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein trafficked her, brought her to the island, used her, let other rich and powerful people use her. You don't have to take my word for it. Obviously, Donald Trump has his own on-the-record interviews where he talked about his friendship with Epstein. There's plenty of footage floating around that you've probably already seen where Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein are partying together. And if you look at some of the news articles from back in 2002, 2001, 2003, even the late 90s, before any of the real heinous stuff came to light, it's pretty troubling to see the type of people that Jeffrey Epstein was hanging out with. There was one article in particular that I read talking about the man of mystery, Jeffrey Epstein, how he was such a handsome and mysterious financier, and how it was so cool that he was going on a private plane ride with Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey, and how they were wondering exactly how that went. But of course, nobody talked in detail about it. That's not how these things work. Here are some things that we know for a fact. Jeffrey Epstein trafficked young women on his own private island for both his own personal use and for the use of rich and powerful people across the world. Now, I do want to clarify, when I say young women, sometimes they were young adult women. And very, very frequently, they were not. They were children. So please keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, we know for a fact that he had a little black book of special contacts, people that he wanted to keep their information close. We don't know exactly why he set aside their information in particular, but they were, generally speaking, mostly rich and powerful people, including people like Prince Andrew, who we know for a fact Jeffrey Epstein trafficked young women to. It also includes people like Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and basically any other rich and famous and powerful person that is asked about Jeffrey Epstein claims to have never been on the island. They spoke with the guy, maybe they rode on his plane, but of course they never went on the island, of course. They had no idea what was going on. It's just so strange to me that somebody who was such close friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 15 years and talked specifically about how they both were attracted to young women wouldn't know what was going on. But again, we'll get to some of that a little later. So these are the facts as far as we know are recorded, what we know is in the record, what you can factually look up in any book and see for sure happened. So these are the facts of Jeffrey Epstein's past history and what landed him in jail the first time and the second time. The second time around, Ghislaine Maxwell essentially turned on Epstein, presented a lot of evidence in regards to how he trafficked women, and even presented digital files, footage, logs, showing how Jeffrey Epstein himself interacted with these women on the island. That is why Ghislaine Maxwell is currently in prison, and that is why Jeffrey Epstein was going to be in prison. We all know that in 2019, he ended his own life, supposedly, in his cell. Now, the MAGA coalition never bought the mainstream story. They thought that, for example, the fact that Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein had such a close relationship, the fact that they flew together multiple times on the Lolita Express, Jeffrey Epstein's private plane, meant that Bill Clinton was likely involved in child trafficking with Epstein. They insisted that the deep state, the swamp, was covering for Bill Clinton and many other rich and powerful people, mostly Democrats. And so that's why Donald Trump campaigned so heavily on having Epstein's client list revealed, releasing the records of everybody that was involved in Epstein's life. I went over in last week's episode how the DOJ has decided that Epstein killed himself, there was no client list, and it's case closed, time to drop it. Seriously, please, time to drop it, please. For example, Donald Trump has gone on a couple of unhinged rants attacking his own base regarding questioning the official story of the Epstein client list. What's going on with my boys, and in some cases, gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. we have a perfect administration, the talk of the world. And selfish people are trying to hurt it. All over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein, over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration who conned the world with the Russia hoax, 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, and more? Let's pause here for a second. So, Donald Trump is implying and outright saying that former President Obama, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, the Biden administration, all colluded together to write up some fake Epstein files. First of all, I do just want to note that Epstein was arrested during Trump's administration. Obama had nothing to do with any of that. Obama wasn't in office. He was long gone by the time the Epstein stuff came to light. So to throw Obama's name into it seems to me like it was just a silly attempt to get his base riled up over somebody he knows they don't like. Same with Hillary Clinton. Bringing up the Biden administration, okay, fine. Biden was in office, since all of that has happened. But to pretend like Obama or Clinton had anything to do with this is ludicrous. And this is totally unrelated, just a complete aside here. But it bothers me so much when MAGA people, right-wing people, talk about the Russia hoax. There wasn't a hoax. An investigation was done. The investigation conclusively proved that Russia did try and interfere in the election in favor of Donald Trump. That happened. That factually happened. The hoax part of it is that Trump says he had nothing to do with it and wasn't involved whatsoever. So he's saying it's entirely a hoax because he never asked Russia to do it. Now, I will contend that he literally did actually ask Russia to do some things. I mean, he got on camera in front of everybody in a live press conference and said, Russia, if you could get a hold of those files, you should leak them, when he was talking about Hillary Clinton's emails, which we'll get to those later too for some reason. But it's so stupid to me when people talk about the Russia hoax as if it was a complete fabrication. If you know anything about what was going on, it was not a fabrication. If you were online during that election cycle, you know what was going on. How all of a sudden there were a lot of people flooding into forums who had new accounts and didn't speak English very well that were really, really in favor of Donald Trump. But, okay, aside from that, let's continue. They created the Epstein files just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton / Christopher Steele dossier that they used on me, and now my so-called friends are playing right into their hands. Why didn't these radical left lunatics release the Epstein files? If there was anything in there that could have hurt the MAGA movement, why didn't they use it? They haven't even given up on the John F. Kennedy or Martin Luther King Jr. files. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to pause here too, because I forgot he even mentioned those files. That was another campaign promise he made, that he was going to be releasing all the JFK files, the MLK Jr. files. He's doing this right now to try and obfuscate the whole Epstein case, which is, you'll notice, a pattern that he's been doing ever since this whole stuff started dropping. Okay, anyway. No matter how much success we have had securing the border, deporting criminals, fixing the economy, energy dominance, a safer world where Iran will not have nuclear weapons, it's never enough for some people. We are about to achieve more in 6 months than any other administration has achieved in over 100 years. And we have so much more to do. We are saving our country and making America great again, which will continue to be our complete priority. The left is imploding. I'm sorry, that's just funny to me because no, right now, the only people that are imploding are the far-right coalition that, one, is obsessed with conspiracy theories and the deep state, and two, loves Donald Trump to death, and they don't know how to conflate those two. There are people right now having an absolute meltdown because they are realizing that Donald Trump is actually part of the deep state. But okay, sorry. Kash Patel and the FBI must be focused on investigating voter fraud, political corruption, Act Blue, the rigged and stolen election of 2020, and arresting thugs and criminals instead of spending month after month looking at nothing but the same old radical left-inspired documents on Jeffrey Epstein. Let Pam Bondi do her job. She's great. The 2020 election was rigged and stolen, and they tried to do the same thing in 2024. That's what she is looking into as AG, and much more. 1 year ago, our country was dead. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein. Somebody that nobody cares about. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay, so that was Donald Trump's first absolutely unhinged tweet about this Epstein case. We all saw that clip from last week's episode where he absolutely just freaked out when a reporter dared to ask about the Epstein files. How are you still talking about this? What's going on? The dude's been dead. Nobody cares about this. I just want to ask anybody who thinks that there is nothing going on right now, why Donald Trump would be freaking out and losing his mind over the Epstein files if there was nothing to be concerned about. Why? Why would he not just say, okay, whatever, it's a waste of time, but just release it? Or even something reasonable like, well, look, I know I said we were going to release the files, but it turns out, I don't know, there's a lot of victim information in there, and it could be personally identifying, and, you know, we don't want to drag these people back into the worst day of their lives, so we're going to go ahead and let this die, but, you know, he did definitely kill himself, and everybody who needs to be prosecuted was prosecuted. No, instead he's going on these absolutely unhinged rants, and that's not even the half of it. Take a look at this other tweet that he sent out a little later. The radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again! Just like with the fake and fully discredited Steele dossier, the lying 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, which the Dems swore had come from Russia. No, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom. And even the Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made-up story used in order to hide crooked Hillary Clinton's big loss in the 2016 presidential election. These scams and hoaxes are all the Democrats are good at. It's all they have. They are no good at governing, no good at policy, and no good at picking winning candidates. Also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. Wait, I'm sorry. Didn't he just say that people on the left were imploding? I swore he just said that, but okay, sorry. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. And my past supporters have bought into this bullshit, hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. I have had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history. And all these people want to talk about, with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems, is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success because I don't want their support anymore. Okay, so first of all, I can't get over how he signs off on his tweets by saying, thank you for your attention to this matter, like it's an HR memo, and then make America great again, like that's his signature, but whatever. Okay, so clearly this guy is losing it. He is losing his mind because he sort of stumbled into the one thing that a lot of people who used to support Donald Trump will not stand. And that is covering for the deep state. I cannot tell you the number of people who I have personally spoken to that told me that they voted for Donald Trump because politicians are liars, we need an outsider, and we need somebody who's going to drain the swamp and go after the deep state and all these big-time government officials who are getting away with all kinds of horrible crimes and, abusing children and stuff like that, because that's just what politicians do, and we need somebody to come in from the outside and set them straight. Well, unfortunately, that is like literally what Donald Trump is doing right now. And it's so bold-faced that even the most ardent Trump supporters are seeing it. Most of the time, frankly, Trump supporters are willing to kind of overlook the stuff that he does. When his talk doesn't match his walk, they just kind of come up with an excuse for it. But this is something there really is no excuse for. There's just not. Pam Bondi said that the client list was literally on her desk. Donald Trump is now saying that she's doing a great job and everybody needs to leave her alone. So he's behind what she's saying 100% of the way. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And to the point where now Republicans, even congressional Republicans, are starting to turn on him. Democrats tried to hold a vote to basically force the government to release all of the files that they had on the Epstein case. Democrats tried to hold a vote. Republicans were talking about whether they were going to be on board with it or not, and ended up voting no on it. Because, and I'm not kidding here, they said specifically it was because Democrats put the movement forward. So Mike Johnson in particular, he's the speaker for the Republicans, he was talking about how we needed to get some clarity and transparency on this Epstein thing. But then he voted no on having the Epstein list and all of the files released. And then later he talked again about how we needed transparency and clarity on the whole thing. And now he's saying, actually, no, we need to give Donald Trump his space. So clearly the messaging is really muddled here. They can sort of hand wave away, pulling a crypto scam on the American people, accepting a $400 million Qatari jet plane as a bribe, advising the DOJ to go after your political opponents and, trampling all over the Constitution. But when you start legitimately defending child predators and trying to keep them safe from the eye of the law, that strikes so deeply past all of the political maneuverings and, to use Donald Trump's own words, the bullshit, and it goes straight to the heart of their humanity. It lights a fire in their soul, and they say, this is something I cannot compromise on. And unfortunately for Donald Trump, and fortunately for the rest of us, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. So the initial movement in Congress to have all of the files released ended up failing. However, there is a new vote that is going to be happening in early August that they say they have the votes for already, that is essentially going to do the same thing. They are going to be taking their recess for the summer, and when they come back, they're going to be having the vote. This is a bipartisan vote, by the way. It's supported by both Republicans and Democrats. And they're saying they're putting off the vote until after the recess because these congressmen are going to go back to their home state. They're going to go back to their constituents. And the idea is that their constituents need to reach out to them and let them know, we care about this issue. We care about the Epstein list. We care about not letting the political elites save their friends from justice. Not letting the swamp take over and hide these crimes against humanity and children. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and do a quick call to action right now. Congress is coming up on their recess soon. Reach out to your representative. Write them a letter. Write them an email. Call their office. Let them know you want to hear about this. You want to get to the source. There are some things that Donald Trump can do right now to make this right. He could appoint a special prosecutor. In the past, when presidents have gotten into political hot water, they have appointed an independent special prosecutor to do a full investigation and find out exactly what's going on. And if they feel like they're clean, it's not a problem. They're able to appoint these independent investigators and say, go ham. You can have access to whatever you want because we're good. And that's something he was asked about. He sort of mused about it at first, said, maybe I'll do it. And then Caroline Leavitt was asked directly, is he going to appoint a special prosecutor? And she said, no, he does not want to do that. Why? Why doesn't he want to do that? It would get everybody off of his back. As long as he didn't appoint like Matt Gaetz or something like that, if he appointed an actual independent prosecutor, it would not be an issue at all. We would get to the bottom of it. We would find out exactly what happened. Everybody would be happy. But I think part of the reason he doesn't want to do that is because of some other stuff that's come to light. A whistleblower came forward and said that back in March, and keep in mind, this was around when Pam Bondi was doing the whole like pageantry with releasing phase 1 of the Epstein list to all of these like different MAGA influencers in these comical binders that basically had no information at all. It was essentially just whatever you could read on Wikipedia. But back in March, the FBI was directed to look through the Epstein files. They brought in a ton of extra manpower strictly to look through the Epstein files. And part of what they were directed to do was flag any mention of the name Trump in those files. Tell me why. Can anybody come up with any reasonable reason that is not highly suspect that would need to happen? Anybody? I mean, seriously, raise your hand. I'm listening. There is not a single reason why the FBI should bring in tens of thousands of man hours to go searching through the Epstein files and flagging instances of the name Trump that is not a cover-up. And now, because of what Trump was saying about like how Obama and Hillary Clinton came up with the Epstein hoax, and like he's calling it a hoax. He's saying none of it ever happened, but he's not really being specific about what exactly is a hoax and like what exactly he's claiming the Obama administration came up with and stuff. He's kind of opened the door for Ghislaine Maxwell to claim that the president himself has said there were no crimes committed here, and so you need to let me free. She actually applied for essentially clemency. She said, I need to be released because the president said none of this was real. And he said it pretty publicly and pretty plainly, too. But of course, that's not the end of the story. The Wall Street Journal released a bombshell report that in 2003, Trump sent a birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein. Not unusual. They were provably friends at the time, even best friends. So it makes sense that he would have sent him a birthday card. The Wall Street Journal evidently has gotten images of a book that Ghislaine Maxwell put together that had various birthday cards from many different people. One of them was from Donald Trump, and this is what it was. A letter in the shape of a woman where Donald Trump signed it right underneath her waistline to look like pubic hair. And on the letter, he wrote this extraordinarily strange and suspicious note. But basically, it's him writing like a fan fiction of a conversation between himself and Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump wrote, I quote, "Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything. Donald. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey. Nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey. Yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey. As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald. A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Okay. All right. So that's pretty weird. That's a pretty weird letter to write to a convicted child predator. I mean, I don't think I even have to kind of opine about what mutual secret they might have in common, or why he's talking about enigmas never aging. I don't even know. So Donald Trump is saying that this is a fake letter. It's totally false. He's actually going to be suing the Wall Street Journal, and specifically Rupert Murdoch, which is funny because Rupert Murdoch also owns Fox News, but okay. He, I guess, called Rupert Murdoch a couple of days before this went live and basically begged him to not run the story. And Rupert Murdoch said that's not how he does things. He does not interfere in publications of stories and whatever, so it's just going to go. So now Donald Trump is saying that he's going to sue for defamation because this is a fake letter. That's actually pretty interesting for a couple of reasons. He is admitting by suing for defamation that this is not just an innocent letter. See, defamation can only be sued for when you are provably damaging somebody, damaging their image, bringing financial harm to them by saying something that's not true. So he's saying that this isn't just some birthday letter. This wasn't just some inside joke between him and Epstein. It wasn't just some, fun thing he could laugh off or whatever. This is a damaging, terrible thing that the Wall Street Journal is accusing him of. So first of all, he's just kind of saying that quiet part out loud. He could have come out and said, yeah, I wrote the letter, but it doesn't, I know it looks weird now in hindsight. I get it, but that really was just some inside jokes and it really had nothing to do with anything bad. And it is what it is. But he didn't. He came out and said, that is a heinous thing that you are accusing me of by saying I wrote this letter. Now, the second thing that is extremely interesting is when you sue somebody, there is a discovery process. That means that the evidence is going to be brought to light. Right now, the Wall Street Journal has not released a picture of the card. I think it would have been helpful if they released a picture of the card because it would have basically packed a lot more of a punch. It would have been more obvious exactly what was going on. You could have seen Donald Trump's signature on it, that sort of thing. But I suspect, and this is just me guessing, okay? I'm just saying this is not any reporting that I've heard. There is not necessarily anything behind this at all. This is my intuition and my judgment of the matter is probably during that period of time in March where the FBI brought in tens of thousands of extra man hours to comb through all of the Epstein stuff, somebody saw this card. And they probably took a picture of it or took a copy of a picture of it. Now, the government frequently will put small watermarks in pictures of evidence or classified documents or anything like that so that they can know basically who leaked it. They can trace it easier. So they can know, whoever had access to this particular file, this particular picture or whatever, you were the one who leaked it because this picture has your watermark on it. It is, typically speaking, kind of an imperceptible watermark. It's hard to see, so leakers won't just be able to hide it. And I suspect that's what happened. I suspect somebody leaked this to the Wall Street Journal. They knew that it was going to have some kind of identifying watermark on it, so they said, do not post a picture of this when you publish it, because they didn't want it to come back to them. But during discovery, that's going to get released. So first of all, we may end up finding out who a whistleblower is. And I just want to, ahead of time, just salute them like, Godspeed, you are doing a service for your country. But second of all, he may regret suing and having this come to light. And I suspect, actually, he's probably going to end up dropping the lawsuit because of that. He's probably going to say it's just because he doesn't want to waste the time. He doesn't want to dignify it with a response, blah, 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 blah. But realistically, I'm telling you, I think it's because of the discovery process and because he does not want this stuff to get out. He doesn't. I mean, that's more than clear with all the other stuff he's been talking about. In the meantime, to kind of appease his former supporters that he said he doesn't care about anymore and thinks they're stupid and worthless, he has now ordered the DOJ to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. That's not really what anybody wants. He is doing that because it sounds like he is releasing some of the Epstein files. That's what it sounds like when he says, I want them to produce grand jury testimony subject to court approval, anything that's pertinent. The grand jury testimony that he's talking about is essentially just going to be stuff about Epstein himself. That's what Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of for trafficking to Epstein himself. That's what Epstein himself was actually convicted of and brought in on, were charges related to his own actions. So this grand jury testimony, it's not really going to have anything in it. And even if it did, he also didn't say, I want it all released. He said, I only want the pertinent stuff released. Well, who gets to decide what is pertinent? It's Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi, the one who is in Trump's pocket and doing exactly what he wants all the time. So he's not actually releasing everything. He's just releasing specific things that are going to make it look like it's just about Epstein and that's the only thing that was ever going on. Now, I already mentioned this, but he has now also ordered the release of a bunch of the MLK files, again, just to kind of obfuscate the issue even more and get people talking about literally anything else. He started going on a rant on Truth about the Washington Commanders and demanding that they change their name back to the Washington Redskins, or else he's going to not allow them to build a stadium in Washington, D.C., which I mean, what? Like, what are we talking about here? In Trump's opinion, anything but Epstein, please. But I mean, it's just so stupid. Like, I won't spend a ton of time on this, but like, Redskin is a racist name for a team. I mean, come on. I'm not the PC police here or anything, but like, come on. It's like, I don't know. It's like having a Detroit team named the Detroit Black Guys or like whatever. It's not okay. It's not a good name. Don't go back to Redskin. I don't like the new name. Commanders, I think, is really stupid, but come on, Trump. Really? Really? That's what you're going with? Because of the Epstein thing, that's what you're going with? Okay. I am absolutely positive there's going to be more of this stuff coming out. It is our job as a collective whole to make sure that we keep talking about this so that more stuff has to come out. Again, please contact your local congressman. Please contact your senators. Let them know that you want this to come out. You want to know the truth. You think it's insulting that Trump is trying to hide behind, talking about renaming a football team and all this other crap that he's spewing. We have to make them tell the truth. And if we keep shining a spotlight on this, we will. It's going to happen. But I don't know about you. I don't want my government to be protecting child predators. I just don't. I don't care if it was Donald Trump in office. I don't care if it was Kamala Harris, Joseph Biden. I don't care. I don't want our government protecting child predators. So please speak up about this. It matters. And if we keep holding their feet to the fire, something is going to break. Okay, so I promised that I was going to be talking more about this immigration stuff, and I'm actually really excited to. There's some big, crazy stuff that's been going on. But first things first, just because I really want to contextualize this all for you, I want to show you this absolutely insane and unhinged clip from Fox News.
This is why the criticism doesn't matter to us. When you call us Nazis, Nazi this, Nazi that, I'm beginning to think they don't like us. You know what? I've said this before, we need to learn from the blacks. The way they were able to remove the power from the N-word by using it. So from now on, it's what up, my Nazi? Hey, what up, my Nazi? Oh my hey, what's hanging, my Nazi?
Nazi, please.
Thank God you did a hard eye there.
Yeah, so they're Nazis. They are mask off about it. They are making a big joke about it. This is kind of similar to what happened after Elon Musk did his whole not Nazi salute. These guys are Nazis. They are making a joke about it. They are trying to rob that word of its power because they want to be able to officially come out and call themselves Nazis. They're making a joke about it. They are joking about one of the worst, most horrific events that ever happened in the history of humanity. It's terrible. These people are terrible people. The way, oh my God, the way Greg Gutfeld said the blacks, like it makes my skin crawl. It really does. It makes me want to pucker up into a corner and just shrivel away. These are terrible people. They know what they are doing is bad. They know it. They're laughing about it. They are laughing in your face about it. They're making jokes about it. They don't care that they are basically making concentration camps. They don't care that right-wing pundits are literally calling for ethnic cleansing. We'll get to that in a bit. They don't care. They think it's funny. They think it is funny to see people mad about this. And it reminds me of these comments that I get so often where people are like, "Oh man, you're really mad about this, huh?" Yes, I am mad about this. You should be mad about this too. It's crazy that you're not. It's not cool to not be completely furious about trampling over human rights. It's not cool to turn the other way when people are being abused and beaten and kidnapped. It's not. You should be mad about this. And these people that are just yucking it up about the liberal tears, oh, we're tearing families apart and you're mad about it. I mean, these are disgusting people. They are bad people. They just are. And they are showing you that they are bad. Are you going to believe them when they are calling each other Nazis in front of your face and yucking it up about it? Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's where we are now. Fox News is openly calling themselves Nazis and laughing about it. Speaking of Fox News, the first thing I want to talk about is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There have been a ton of developments in his case. And the first thing that I want to mention, because frankly, it's kind of funny, is how Fox News absolutely defamed the guy. Take a look at this clip and tell me if you notice anything weird.
If you're going to vote no on this, then you're voting along with Democrats, especially Democrats like Maxine Dexter, who was on the Hill today dressed in a white robe, who also visited El Salvador to go see Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who killed Americans. Yeah, so this was a little bit ago. This was back during the big, beautiful bill when they were voting for or against it. And what was that one little thing? That one little bit that she said about murdering people? What was that? Kilmar Abrego Garcia has not killed anybody. He hasn't been accused of killing anybody. This is some lunatic right-wing pundit that Fox News brought on to bash Democrats and Republicans that were against the big, beautiful bill, and also bash Kilmar Abrego Garcia kind of for no reason. I mean, it really had nothing to do with what was going on at the time. Like I said, they were talking about the bill. They weren't even talking about immigration or anything like that. And she just kind of out of nowhere decided to just defame a guy on the news. Now, I would not be doing my whatever journalistic duty or whatever you want to call it if I didn't mention that the next day, both Fox and that particular talking head came out and admitted that Kilmar has not been accused of killing anybody. So, but
I think it paints an important picture about how these people, they're just willing to come up with stuff. They are just willing to lie, just lie. They will make up stuff. They will lie about stuff. They will say basically whatever comes to mind, like they're just riffing. They have no idea what the truth is, but they just want to get their vibes out there. And that's that. So the DOJ has accused Kilmar Abrego Garcia of some really horrible things. Some of the things they've accused him of, I think I've mentioned before, are literally impossible. I mean, they said that he was driving 5 times a week from Maryland to Texas and back. That's not physically possible. If he did not stop to sleep, that is not physically possible. Now they're saying he killed people. Nobody's saying he killed people, but they just kind of threw it out there. Like they're just racist. I don't know how else to say it. I'm not that guy. I'm not that type. I'm not the one to just jump to racism. I'm not the one to just play the racism card. I'm not. I always used to get annoyed by it. Back in the day, it used to be that left-wing people would kind of drop that card too soon, I think. They would just kind of come up with things to be mad about. But what else are you going to call it? They found a guy who is Hispanic and not from this country, and they just started accusing him of a bunch of horrible stuff because they want to deport him. They don't want to deport him because he did the horrible stuff. No, it's the opposite. They want to deport him already just because. It doesn't matter that he's married and has kids and has, been an upstanding member of society. He's got a union job. They don't care about any of that stuff. They want him deported, and so they come up with some stuff to accuse him of afterwards. Why do they want him deported? Fill in the blank. I mean, they want him deported because they are blank. What is it? If it's not because they're racist, I want to know why. There is no reasonable reason to want a guy like that deported. He is paying taxes. He is doing things the right way. He's staying out of trouble. He's being by all reports, good guy. So why do they want this guy deported? There are 2 more updates to this Kilmar case as well. He came out and basically gave some testimony about what all happened at CECOT, the horrible conditions that he was subjected to. And I want to just read a couple of excerpts here for you because it is really startling. We knew things were bad in CECOT. We know how they do things in El Salvador. But this was some really disturbing stuff. He said that upon arrival, he was forced to strip, issued prison clothing, kicked in the legs with boots, and struck on his head and arms to change faster. His head was then forcibly shaved, and he was frog-marched to a cell while being hit with wooden batons. The following day, he had visible bruises and lumps all over his body. He and 20 other Salvadorans were in one cell, and they were forced to kneel from approximately 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., with guards striking anyone who fell from exhaustion. So all night long, they were not allowed to lay down and sleep. They had to kneel on the hard ground. And if you fell over, you were beaten until you got back up again. During that time, Abrego was denied bathroom access and soiled himself. Later, the inmates were confined to metal bunks with no mattresses, no windows, bright lights that stayed on 24 hours a day. Prison officials repeatedly told Abrego that they would transfer him to cells containing gang members who they assured him would tear him apart. Abrego observed prisoners violently harm each other without staff intervention. Screams from nearby cells would similarly ring out throughout the night without any response from prison guards or personnel. That is horrifying. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was sent to a concentration camp. There is no other way of putting it. He lost 31 pounds in 2 weeks. If that is not cruel and unusual punishment, I don't know what is. And we facilitated that. Now, the other aspect of his case that has come up is the fact that the DOJ is outright stating now that they are going to try and deport him before he's brought to trial. Now, bear with me for a second here, because let's rewind. Initially, they sent Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador illegally. And they did it just because he was here illegally and they wanted to get him out to basically fill their quota. After he was sent out, we ruled that he was sent out illegally. And there was a big back and forth for a long time with them saying, well, he's already gone, we can't do anything about it. The president of El Salvador saying, well, no, I would never send him back because he's a terrorist. And, you know, why would I release a terrorist into your country on purpose? And there was just a whole back and forth about how our administration wasn't going to do anything about it. El Salvador wasn't going to do anything about it. And basically they were telling the judicial branch to pound sand. We don't care if you say it was illegal. We don't care if you say we have to facilitate his return. He ain't coming back, and that's that. Well, then they started talking about holding people in contempt, and all of a sudden, whoa, wait a second. Actually, you know what? Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a criminal. He is a horrible person. You guys remember when we gave him a traffic ticket back in 2008 or whatever? Yeah, he's a terrible person. Let's bring him back. Let's bring him back to put him on trial and make sure he gets punished for his horrible crimes. And by the way, it wasn't just a traffic ticket. Actually, he was human trafficking. Yeah, he was human trafficking 5 times a week from Maryland to Texas, thousands of people, and it was, you know, drugs and children and stuff. And we're not going to charge him with any of that, but trust us, that happened too. And now we're going to bring him to court, and we're going to make sure he pays the price for being a criminal. And now it's actually, you know what? Scratch the whole trial thing. We just want to get him out again. So instead, this time they're saying they want to deport him to either Mexico or South Sudan. Now, I haven't been able to find any information on this, but I don't know that he has actually, spent any time necessarily in Mexico. And I don't think he's been to Sudan at all. So they are planning on uprooting this guy, who they have, by the way, not proven to have committed any crimes whatsoever, other than once when he came here as a minor, crossing the border illegally, which is a misdemeanor. And they want to take him away from his wife and his kids, and they want to send him to South Sudan? What? And this is normal to you people. This is normal. This is okay. If you're saying he's a criminal, let him stand trial. That's all we have ever been asking for. We weren't saying you got to bring him back and just, give him free citizenship and whatever. Nobody was saying that. We were saying if you have an actual reason to get rid of him because you think he is a criminal, prove it. Just bring him to court. Shouldn't be that hard. You have the full might of the government at your back. You can charge him with whatever. You can bring up the evidence and prove it in a court of law, and that's that. No more complaints. Nobody has a problem if you are deporting a criminal, a human trafficker. Nobody has a problem with that. We have a problem if you are snatching up this guy for no reason other than to fill a quota. I mean, let me put it into perspective for you. Have you ever driven literally a single mile over the speed limit? If you got pulled over by a cop for going 1 mile per hour over the speed limit and you got a ticket for it, you would think that was bullcrap, right? Well, that is the same level, literally, of violation that Kilmar Abrego Garcia did. It is a misdemeanor to cross the border once, undocumented. It is a misdemeanor to go 1 mile per hour over the speed limit. Those are the same level of infraction. And if the cop admitted, yeah, I just pulled you over and gave you a ticket because, the boss is on my back about filling some quotas and, we just got to give tickets now. You would think that was a serious issue, a violation of ethics, maybe discriminatory. I mean, have a little perspective here. That's all I'm asking is just put yourself in this guy's shoes. He's been here like a decade and a half. Like basically as long as he hasn't lived here, he's lived here. This is where he's been his whole adult life. This is all he's ever known as an adult. He's got a wife and multiple kids. He's got a union job, and he's being snatched up because of quotas. Because of quotas. Because freaking Stephen Miller said that you need to deport 3,000 people a day. Stephen Miller. Oh, God. All right. Speaking of this administration doing stupid and illegal things, do you guys remember Mahmoud Khalil? Mahmoud Khalil was a student at Columbia University, and he participated in some protests against Israel, pro-Palestinian protests, saying basically, Israel is genociding people in Gaza, and we want them to stop. That's it. And by the way, he is a green card holder, so he is a permanent resident. He is not a full-on citizen, but he is a permanent resident. And so, for the terrible crime of exercising his First Amendment rights, he was snatched up, held for 100+ days, transferred between various holding facilities in states that he's never been in before, and kept away from his family. Well, finally, the justice system made a ruling that no, you cannot deport this guy for exercising his First Amendment rights. He is a permanent resident. He is covered under the First Amendment like everybody else, and you can't kick him out of the country for that. Thank God we finally came to a good conclusion on that. For everybody upset about me not talking about positive news enough, and I know there's a lot of you out there, I feel you too. We finally have some really, really good news. Truly. Now, it's bittersweet because while Mahmoud Khalil was being held illegally, he missed the birth of his son, which is, it's just devastating. It really is. That is a terrible, terrible thing to happen because of a hateful and stupid administration that doesn't understand constitutional rights and can't stand people having different opinions than them. So Mahmoud Khalil is now suing, and I hope he wins. Really, I do. He had to miss the birth of his son. I cannot tell you how devastated I would be if I had to miss the birth of my child for any reason, but especially if it was because I was being illegally held by the federal government for speaking my mind. If they decided, because I host this little podcast in my corner of the internet, that they were going to hold me for over 100 days, and I missed some incredible, miraculous, beautiful event like the birth of a child for it, I would be furious. You couldn't get me in front of a camera because I wouldn't stop swearing. So yes, Mahmoud Khalil is now suing the U.S. government for illegally detaining him, and I hope he wins. This is probably the last time we're going to be talking about him. I may bring him up again later, just as a quick reminder, whenever we find out how this case ends, but thank goodness, sometimes we really do get good news. We are now ending TPS for a variety of countries, a bunch of them actually, including countries like Honduras and Haiti, where we have given TPS since sometime in the late 90s, I think 1999. TPS, by the way, is temporary protected status. And basically that means if people come here from those countries seeking asylum, we're going to let them stay for essentially as long as they want, because their countries are in such bad shape that it would be unethical and immoral and wrong to send them back in their current state. These are people who have been living here, like I said, in some cases since 1999. They've been here for 26 years, and we are now taking away temporary protected status to send them back, even though their countries are no better off than when they first came here. I mean, I think I mentioned before, we took away TPS for Afghanis, people from Afghanistan, Honduras, Haiti. These countries are torn apart right now. They are suffering from natural disasters, man-made disasters, war, ethnic cleansing. They are not safe places to be. And like I said, some of these people have been here for 26 years. They could have come here as a child. They might not even know the language of the countries they're being sent back to, much less the culture. They are culturally American at this point. And I have no problem necessarily with ending TPS for countries that truly have improved and grown to the point where it is safe to send people back. But I mean, seriously, Honduras, Haiti? These are not safe countries. If there are travel warnings and travel restrictions to countries because of how dangerous it is to go there, we should probably not be ending TPS for those countries. I mean, is that not common sense? I think it makes sense. In our country's latest efforts to get rid of people who were not born here, we are now going to be sending away untold tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of people back to their unsafe countries. I don't know about you, but I don't think this is what they voted for. I've talked with you before about how the polling is very clear about what type of immigration policies are popular. So, getting rid of criminals, very popular. Getting rid of people who just arrived at the border, who are still within a certain range of the border, who go back and forth. Getting rid of repeat offenders, popular. Getting rid of people who have legally been here. They are not breaking any laws whatsoever. They legally applied for asylum. They legally came here. They have been holding jobs. They have been getting ingrained in their communities, having kids. In some cases, even trying to get on the path to citizenship. And now they're just being ripped up and sent away because, again, Stephen Miller has decided that this is like the most important thing in the world. That they're staining the blood of our country and they need to get gone or else. Not popular. Not a good move. That's not what people want. It's not. So I don't think this is what you voted for. If it is, let me know. If this is what you want, let me know and let me know why. What is the benefit, in your opinion, to getting rid of these people who have been here for 26 years, who have children and jobs and are culturally American? What is the big benefit to you of getting rid of them? Genuinely, if I've got a blind spot, please let me know. Oh, I want to talk a little bit about Alligator Alcatraz, which I really wish there was a better name for it because I cringe so hard every time I say it, but that's just what everybody knows it by. It's the same as like the big beautiful bill. One of my low-key complaints about this administration is how cringeworthy every single name that they come up with is. But, okay. Alligator Alcatraz is built in the swampland in Florida, right at the start of hurricane season, right in the middle of where a hurricane could tear through. And not only that, but it was built in the middle of summer in a swamp where mosquitoes are, they're not just a pest control problem. They are a genuine force of nature. So there's some footage going around, you may have seen it, of like reporters that are bundled up like they're kind of going into the tundra. And they say it's because they literally cannot breathe or talk or do anything at all without mosquitoes entering their mouth when they go to visit Alligator Alcatraz. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, gee, this administration really didn't plan ahead. They must be pretty dumb, huh? And maybe you'd be right. But unfortunately, I truly, genuinely believe that this is more so a case of weaponized incompetence. I think they knew exactly what they were doing by creating this camp of people that they can kind of concentrate into one place in the middle of a swamp, far away from society, in the middle of mosquito season, right in the path of potential hurricanes at the start of hurricane season. I think they did it on purpose. I think that they want to dehumanize these people that they are rounding up to send out of this country. And some evidence that I have for that is people like Laura Loomer, talking head in conservative circles, who said that there are 65 million people that she wouldn't mind being fed to alligators. She said this in the context of them talking about illegal immigrants that try and escape from Alligator Alcatraz being eaten by alligators, which, first of all, is just pretty inhumane and horrific in and of itself. Like, I don't think it's that funny to joke about something like that when you are an elected official, much less the president of the United States. I don't think that's cool. There are not 65 million illegal immigrants in the United States. There are 65 million Hispanic people in the United States. So either Laura Loomer happened to make an egregious error when talking about the people that she thought should be eaten by alligators, and also she has like zero concept of numbers and thought that 65 million people could be here illegally, which is insane. Or she was literally talking about ethnically cleansing Latino people from the United States. And this is a big time talking head. This is a top advisor of the Trump administration who does not work for the Trump administration. I may be talking about some of the scandals involving Laura Loomer and her deeply personal connection with the president at some point in the future, but just know that she's somebody who has the president's ear. So when she talks about ethnically cleansing huge groups of people, that's a big problem. And I kind of showed you at the beginning of this how they like to joke around about really horrific and terrible things. They kind of like to lean into it. They kind of like to joke about it so much that it's now okay and commonplace. And you can call yourself a Nazi, and that's totally cool, actually. That's not even a bad thing at all anymore. It's like a mark of pride. You should call yourself a Nazi. You should joke around about ethnically cleansing Latinos from the United States. That means you're a patriot. I just want you to understand that when these people talk about immigration, when they talk about deporting people, most of the time it's not coming from a good place. It's not coming from a place in their heart of trying to help people. At best, it's coming from a xenophobic place in their heart of trying to save their country from becoming more brown. And I guess actually a great way of showing this is exactly how much money this big, beautiful bill allocated to immigration enforcement. So over the next 4 years, we will be giving ICE $75 billion with a B dollars. This, if they were a military in the global rankings, would put them at the 15th highest funded military. We are giving $160 billion for immigration enforcement. Now, there are debates about how much illegal aliens cost this country. Some people have argued that illegal aliens, frankly, don't cost the country anything at all. They actually pay into services by paying taxes that they will never be able to take advantage of. If they're working a W-2 job and using like a fake social security number, they're paying payroll taxes. They're paying into social security that they will never get to use. They're paying into Medicaid that they will never get to take advantage of. They're paying into your general upkeep of, roads and cities and infrastructure by paying sales tax on every single thing that they buy. And while, yes, they do get to make use of roads and infrastructure, everybody does. Now, other people have argued that they are actually a drain on society economically because they might take more advantage of like hospitals, for example, and not pay for their hospital bills when they show up to the emergency room. I find this to be a less compelling argument because, first of all, literally anybody can do that. You can just show up to an emergency room, give them a fake name, and leave. I'm not saying I advocate for that, by the way, but I'm just saying anybody can do that. And second of all, they still are paying taxes either way on, sales tax and things like that. Even if they're getting paid in cash under the table and not paying a payroll tax, they're still paying taxes in other ways. But regardless, they are not a $160 billion problem. So we are literally paying more to get rid of illegal immigrants than it costs for them to just be here. Like, we could just ignore the problem entirely, and it would be cheaper than what we're doing right now, which is paying billions and billions of dollars, funding ICE like it's a literal military force, spending up for things like Alligator Alcatraz to concentrate these people in these camps before we send them away. It doesn't make sense. And this kind of harkens back to how I was talking in the last episode about how Republicans seem to kind of vote with their hearts more than Democrats lately, because Republicans are strongly in favor of this sort of wasteful spending on immigration enforcement. It kind of reminds me of back when DOJ was slashing the budget and they were firing IRS professionals. So people who worked for the IRS, who worked to investigate tax fraud and, go collect back taxes for people. These people actually made more money for the federal government than they cost, right? I mean, that's their whole job, is to go get money that people owe to the federal government. And the money that they get is more than what their salary is. So every time DOJ was firing one of these IRS people, they were actually costing the government more money by doing that. But it felt really good because it was DOJ, going in and slashing away at the budget and cutting things out. But it just didn't make sense. And it's just like this insane expenditure for ICE and for immigration enforcement. It just doesn't make sense. So if you want to fix the immigration issues because you think it's costing our country too much money fiscally, that's fine, but you should not be for this insane expenditure on immigration enforcement, because that's not going to help things at all. Because first of all, we are still going to have people here illegally. We are not going to get rid of all of them. It's just not possible. You could give $20 trillion to immigration enforcement and ICE, and we would not get every person who is here illegally. And second of all, again, we're costing more money to the country by doing it like this than if we just, frankly, ignored it entirely. What we should do is have a small portion of this go towards immigration enforcement. And we can sort of change the way that we target people, like actually going after criminals instead of snatching up people when they're going to the appointments that they made to follow the rules. Snatching up people when they're going to their yearly check-ins to show that they have actually been good, productive non-citizens living here and working and paying taxes and not getting into trouble. That way we wouldn't have to waste money on getting rid of people who we like being here, and we could go get rid of the people who we don't want here, who we can all agree we don't want here. But alas, Stephen Miller must have his $3,000 a day. That's just how it's got to be. So we are going to waste $160 billion on fulfilling Stephen Miller's wet dream about deporting 3,000 people a day. All right, so there is one final topic I want to just kind of briefly, I guess, go over here at the end. In the last episode, I talked about universal health care and how I thought that is something that we should strive for as a country. How every other developed nation in the world, every other wealthy nation has figured out a way to give their population universal health care, meaning either absolutely zero or very little out-of-pocket expense for your health care. I was pretty surprised to find that I got a pretty viscerally angry response on that from a lot of people. A lot of people thought that I was saying I wanted to rob them of their hard-earned money when they're just trying to scrape by and use that to pay for undeserving people's health care. So I guess I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Because I really think people have gotten the wrong idea here. So first of all, if you are just scraping by, or even if you are doing just fine, or even if you are pretty darn well off, but you are not obscenely wealthy, this should not add any cost to you. This should not take any money out of your pocket. It should actually give you more money. The way it works is right now, you have to pay a premium for your insurance every paycheck. Every month, every couple of weeks, the insurance company takes some money out of your paycheck to pay for your premium. If we had universal health care, you would not have to pay that anymore. That would not be coming out of your paycheck. So that money that you are now spending on your insurance, you would get to keep instead. Now, we would have to raise that money for universal health care somehow. There are a couple of ways that we could do it. First of all, we could cut money out of insane expenditures, like, for example, $160 billion for immigration enforcement. We could take $100 billion away from that and still be able to successfully perform immigration enforcement. We could cut a little bit out of our defense spending. We have an obscenely huge defensive budget. It's ridiculous. When you look at how much the US spends on our military compared to any other country in the world, it's obscene. It's ludicrous. But the other way, and this is really how I think we should do it, is we could just raise taxes on the ultra wealthy. So in my opinion, what we would do is we would raise taxes on people who make an insane amount, like 7 digits in a year as annual income. We would raise taxes for that group of people. We wouldn't even touch taxes for anybody making less than that. And that should be able to cover universal health care. First of all, if every other wealthy or developed nation in the world has been able to do this, why can't the United States? We are not incredibly unique in our population makeup or anything like that. We have more people than many countries, yes, but we also have a much higher GDP per capita than many countries. So we should definitely be able to afford this. It shouldn't be a question of money. We are a very wealthy nation. So if you're saying that other countries can do this and we for some reason can't, you're saying there is something wrong with us, like we're stupid or something. And secondly, and this is, I guess, really kind of what I wanted to talk about, is I had people saying that it was not fair that I wanted to rob billionaires of their money to pay for healthcare for everybody else, and that was super entitled and selfish. These ultra wealthy people, these billionaires in the country, if you raised their taxes, even by a significant amount, it would not touch their standards of living whatsoever. It would not make them have one iota less of a good life. They would not have to change the amount of money that they spend, probably, because a lot of their wealth is just tied up in other things. It's tied up in the markets. It's tied up in investments. It's tied up in property, like yachts and mansions and stuff. They probably would not have to change how much they spent on anything at all. And even if they did, okay, maybe it means they have to own one less yacht or one less mansion or something like that. Like, I'm not going to cry for that. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Because these people built their wealth on the back of Americans. I don't consider it robbing them of their hard-earned wealth. I consider it them paying us back for taking advantage of us. I've mentioned this to you before, but like, Walmart is the largest employer in the United States, and they are also the largest employer of people on food stamps in the United States. We are subsidizing Walmart. We are letting them not pay people enough. Because if they actually paid people enough, people wouldn't have to be on food stamps. But because Walmart doesn't pay people enough, because we don't make them pay people enough, we have to provide food stamps for all of these families that are employed by Walmart. So I'm saying that we are just basically taking our fair share back. These billionaires built their wealth on the back of abusing the working class. They just did. There is no way you can be an ethical billionaire. There's not. I'm sorry. If you have $1 billion+ in assets, you got that through unscrupulous means. You just did. You stepped on people, you abused people. That's that. And even if you didn't do it on purpose, you still participated in a system that did that. So I'm not saying you are necessarily a bad person because you are a billionaire, but you participated in a system that absolutely abused people under you to get where you are. Whether or not you knowingly did it, you did it. So this is not robbing from the rich. This is taking back what they owe us. This is them paying us back for providing the type of lifestyle that they have. They're just paying their fair share. Because the largest cause of bankruptcy in America is healthcare costs. So we live in a country with the most billionaires in the world, while at the same time, we live in a country with the most people filing bankruptcy because they can't afford their hospital bill. That does not make sense. There is no moral or logical system where that makes sense. So we can fix that. We can. And then for the people, speaking of morality, who moralize about stealing from the rich because it's just not fair that we take their money. It's not okay and you don't deserve it and whatever. I hesitated to say this. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to or not, but the truth is you are being an Uncle Tom for the rich. You just are. There's a famous quote about how Americans think of themselves as temporarily embarrassed billionaires. How every American in their heart just knows that they're actually a billionaire when it comes down to it. I just haven't gotten it yet, but I know I am. And if I raise taxes on billionaires, that means one day I'm going to be raising taxes on me, and that's not okay. But it's just not true. You and I are working class people. We are not the same species as these billionaires. We're just not. And if you are sticking up for these billionaires over your fellow working class people, you are licking their boots and you are an Uncle Tom. There's just no other way to say it. You just are. You are a class traitor. I don't understand why you would stick up for these people who don't care about you. They just don't. If you dropped dead today, they would not care whatsoever. The only thing they would care about is, well, I need to find another worker ant to fill your shoes. Because that's all they think of you as, just a drone, just a worker bee, just somebody to fulfill their fantasies of being able to rent out the entire city of Venice. I'm looking at you, Jeff Bezos. Like these people do not have the same kind of life as you and me. They don't. They are not living the same experiences. They are not the same species as you and I. We don't look at life the same way. You and I, we struggle with bills. We have to budget. We have to actually look at our bank accounts before we buy things. These people, they haven't been to a grocery store in 25 years. They don't know. They don't know what groceries are. They don't have to cook for themselves or clean for themselves or drive for themselves or do anything. They can hop in a private jet, eat on the jet from their private chef, go to the fanciest restaurant in the world and book it out so they can get private service. They can do whatever they want. So when you stick up for them and you say, no, how could you tax the poor billionaires? Won't somebody please just stick up for the billionaires? You are an Uncle Tom, and you are forgetting where you really are, who the real enemies are. Because it's not me. It's not me calling for your healthcare to be free for you. I'm saying I don't want you to pay for healthcare, and you're mad at me for that. Because you're worried about making Jeff Bezos sad? Like, what is going on here? So, yeah, that was just the little segment I wanted to do at the end of the episode. I was so flabbergasted that people were genuinely mad at me for saying we should tax billionaires to pay for your healthcare. If somebody can make it make sense to me, please hit me up in the comments section. I would love to hear from you. As always, actually, check out the description below. I've got links to the Discord. If you want to buy me a cheeseburger, that's where I've got the link for that too. I've got my TikTok down there if you want to see some of the shorts on TikTok instead of YouTube. Check it all out down there. I've also got the timestamps below if you want to revisit any section or any of the topics we talked about. As always, hit me up in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you, whether you agree or disagree. You always bring me some enlightenment. I appreciate it. And it's always good to hear from you too. So thank you very much for tuning in this week. And as always, remember, when you change your perspective, the reality changes. I'll see you soon.